All right, everyone. We just covered real briefly what we covered yesterday in the class. That was all about subnetting, introduction to networking, what a network is, the different types of networks. We understand now how to subnet. We just broke a network from one subnet to 4 subnets. We understand the binary conversion that goes behind that. We understand the meaning of the subnet mask. You understand the meaning of the gateway. You understand how to find the different subnets once you have turned on more bits in your subnet mask. Folks, this is exciting. I'm ready to jump into the next section. And in this next session, I will tell you about the OSI model. What is the OSI model? I'm Jared Derival, world-class IT and cybersecurity professional. It is not something for you to be intimidated by, because the truth is, take it from me, the OSI model doesn't exist. It is a conceptual idea to help you make sense of this complex world of networking. The world of networking is very complex. And believe me, if you're looking for complexity in that, it's not going to be rare to find. That's why the founders of networking invite you all to look for simplicity in your engineering process of a network. Thus comes the OSI model, to help make sense of a world that makes no sense. The deeper you dive into this as a newcomer into this field, the more confusing it's going to be. Folks, networking can make your head spin. The OSI model, on the other hand, simplifies that. It says, okay, you don't have to imagine this whole thing all at once and swim into that and get lost. You can break it down into 7 layers. And here I tell you about the 7 layers of the OSI model in the most simplified way possible. But keep this in mind. You don't have to memorize anything that's on the screen here, because all of this thing doesn't exist. You will never see the OSI model. There is not a place where you can encounter that OSI model. I can show you a switch. I have one somewhere behind of me. If you see this white box here, that's a switch, right? I like when this little light turns on. Et voila, it works. I tap on it and it turns brighter. Turn off. You see, if I tap it, it understands. But the switch cannot do that. It's a different type of equipment. It doesn't understand, but it's real. You can touch it. You can hear it. When you turn it on, you see the lights turn on. When you plug something into it, it clicks. But the OSI model, my friend, is invisible. You will never get to see it. But if you understand it, as you talk about networking, it'll make sense very easily. Look at the 7 layers of the OSI model here. Look at layer 1. What do you see on the green area of that screen here? It says cable, low voltage. Just remember this. Just understand this. The first layer is the physical layer. That's the layer where things are visible to you. You touch them, like the cable that you plug into the switch to connect into your computer. Low voltage. That's the layer 1. That's what it represents. Now, don't say that the cable is layer 1. Layer 1 represents that conceptually in that imaginary world. If you were to refer to the cable, you could say, this is layer 1. Now, the switch that I just mentioned in the back here, it lives at layer 2. It has an address, a type of address that it uses to move data or to switch frames from one interface to another. I feel like pulling the switch and I should do that. All right, there it is. Look at this switch right there. You see those interfaces, those holes there? When you plug something in here, you hear it clicks. The job of this switch is to move frames from one of these interfaces to the other. I'll put this back. Now, as this happens, the switch needs to know the address of the sender and the address of the recipient of that frame. We call it frame at the layer 2. And that address that the switch uses is called the MAC address. Now, just understand that if you encounter a switch that is switching frames from one interface to another, you can just conceptually envision that to be at layer 2. Now, layer 3 is where routers live. What are the routers? The routers typically, they are connected to the switches. And what do? They route. They move packets Understand that I said frame for the switch and now I say packet for the router. You'll get to understand those things in more detail, but for now, just remember frame for switch, packet for routers. MAC address for switch, IP address for routers. You see, it was very important for us to understand the anatomy of the IP address. Now look at this. At layer 3, our router lives. Our IP address that we learned all about yesterday and even today, that's where it lives conceptually. Layer 4, TCP. Do you remember TCP, Transmission Control Protocol? I told you that there were other members of the IP suite, UDP, and plenty of others. Those, they live at layer 4. And layer 5, session. That means communication starts from one point to another. From me to you, I am speaking. You could envision this to be a session between me and you, right? I'm speaking and you're listening. That happens at layer 5. Data preparation. Do you realize that I said to you that it started on the wire that's connected to the switch? But what happens beyond that? It enters the switch. It uses MAC address to be moved from where it originates to where it's going. It exits the switch. It enters the router. It exits the router. It goes somewhere else. And it's going to be delivered to its destination. Therefore, that data now is prepared, right? Wrapped into beautiful layers. That's the layer 6 data preparation layer. Why does it do that? That is because this piece of data that I sent from me to you, before it gets to you, and for you to be able to envision that and see that and interact with that on your screen, it's got to be prepared in the most beautiful way possible. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to show up on your computer screen. All of that happened to me, to my face, of course, not the real me, because I'm over here, right? But the image that I sent from my computer to you, or from my computer to your computer, it really did go through that process that I just explained. My computer now, it's connected to a switch. Now, this connection can happen in two major ways. There can be a cable that connects from my computer and into the switch back in my MDF. That's a big place where I have plenty of network devices, right? But there's another way that it can happen. There can be a card on my computer that sends the signal wirelessly from my computer to another device that is connected to the switch. If a cable is not possible, that's called an access point. This is what you call the Wi-Fi, right? For the non-initiated person. But for you now, as the network professional, you say that there is a wireless card that sends a signal to a wireless access point. And those two, they get an agreement, right? Signal sent, signal received. And then that signal gets received from the wireless access point. It enters the switch, and then that process continues. So whether you have a cable or not, whether you send that from your computer to the switch using a cable or using the wireless connectivity that I just explained here, it's still the same thing, layer 1. Now, this really did happen to me, that my image left the computer. It entered the layer 1, and it is on the wire. And what happens to it, my friend, next is nothing short of miraculous. And that's why we needed to have the OSI model to come and explain this phenomenon. Folks, what did I say? It's a miracle. Miracles don't exist, right? Have you ever seen a miracle? Can you show me a miracle now? You can't, right? This is the same thing as the OSI model. It doesn't exist in reality. We just envision that stuff. But there are things that it refers to that are as real can be, such as the switch is real. The wireless access point, that's real. The cable, the low voltage cable, that's real. The switch is real. The MAC address, the routing topology, the IP address, TCP, session, data preparation, application, all of these things are real. But they're so complex that if you don't put them each into a category, that it'll be a big, chaotic world. The OSI model is here to explain a world that is inexplicable. And I just did my best to explain to you the world of networking in 7 layers. I'm Jerry Derival, world-class IT and cybersecurity professional.